Hi everyone, welcome to episode 79 of the ITSM crowd. This is our fifth episode this week, which I think has to be some kind of record. I'm not sure what it is. But the reason for this embarrassment of riches is we are talking about a new publication, which is the Jigsaw organization. So the Jigsaw organization came from my reflections on what's happened this year, what's happened to organizations, what's happened to people, and this idea that everything has been broken up into pieces and scattered. So where we work, how we work, our business processes, everything has changed incredibly quickly. And what I wanted to do, what I thought might be helpful, is just share some ideas with people about how we actually take something positive away from this situation, as well as actually dealing with the immediate impact. Because really, we accept now this isn't a short-term thing. We're not snapping back. These are going to be permanent changes to how we work. So what I wanted to do was create some guidance that would help organizations and individuals take something good away from this. So what I did was I contacted some of the finest minds in service management, management consultancy, technical consultancy, and they all contributed an article to this document, the Jigsaw organization. And you can see the link to the document on screen now. It's a free download. It's nearly 100 pages. It's excellently readable. So I really would recommend that you go grab a copy of that. And there's lots of inspiration in there. But in addition to that, we decided we would do a series of ITSM crowds as well and invite some of the authors along just to talk about their articles. So we've had 5 this week. We've got 2 more coming up on the 5th of November. So do keep an eye out for those as well. But it's really just to allow some of the authors to kind of share a bit more advice and guidance. So this afternoon, I have got 3 wonderful guests with me who all have a different perspective on Agile. So brought them all together, and I'm going to start by asking them to introduce themselves. So Daniel, if I could start with you, please, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you were writing about in the Jigsaw organization.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you very much for putting all of this together. I mean, I I know everyone that contributed to the Jigsaw uh, puzzle, and reading their stuff just help me learn things that I hadn't even considered before. My contribution to Jigsaw was to discuss business continuity and to reflect on the fact that the first time I encountered business continuity was when a Force 5 hurricane was getting ready to take out my data center, and I needed to convince the CEO that we were going to be able to um, help the organization, help the bank service their customers. And he kept reminding us, and he was very good at this, because business continuity to him was not the outcome of business impact analysis. That concept didn't occur in the 70s. His concept was going around to everybody in the organization, all 8,000 employees, and saying, tomorrow, will you be able to do your job? And if you're not, tell me now, because I need to make sure that tomorrow you're going to be able to do your job. And the outcome of that was that as the Force 5 hurricane hit Texas, we were the 3rd largest bank. The 1st and 2nd largest bank in the great state of Texas didn't have the same type of continuity mentality or infrastructure that we did. So we grew by 4.5 million accounts in 5 weeks. And we went from the 3rd largest bank in Texas to the largest bank in the Southwest United States.
Wow.
So it's impressive to try to get an entire organization to every day think about the continuity and agility and resilience and sustainability of the business, which is exactly what we're in now. All your COVID plans, your strategies, are they ready for next? There is no normal, which is what you said. there's going to be the next lockdown. There's going to be the next issue. There's going to be another supplier that goes out of business tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be ready to, for that. You have to be ready for tomorrow. So how can you be ready for tomorrow? Because if you're not, then you have no continuity in your business.
That makes sense. Looking forward to digging into that a little bit more. Nicholas, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, Claire. Hi, everyone. And thank you again for putting this together. It was really fun writing this earlier and now talking about it again. I come from a long story of working with process and ITSM, IT management. And since the last, I think, almost 9 years, I live in Brazil. And just recently, I joined the best consultancy for working with agility. So agility became my thing for a long time, like 10 years. I worked with it without even, thinking so much about the terms. But I was just working in an agile way, and then, arrived everything. And now everything is about agile. In Brazil, it really connects with the way people think, more flexible and the culture. So I wrote about, how to manage the fact that everything is upside down and people are working from home and there's no control. Because in Brazil and in many other places, companies still rely a lot on control, supervision and control. And that, as a fact, is sad and also very unproductive, since it's about control that people do stuff, not what they actually produce, the outcome. And that's what Agile is all about, focus on the result for a customer, working in flexible and open and transparent way. So I wrote about something I call minimum viable Agile, which is some sort of, shortcut into the Agile world, from going from, bureaucratic, waterfall-based, slow way of being more agile without, having to implement some of the big frameworks out there.
Mm-hmm.
Basically about, trust, letting go of control, supporting teams, using some of the agile concepts, for example, Scrum with ceremonies, daily stand-ups, boards from Kanban, and these kind of things. So I really see how Agile has a huge boom by this Corona COVID crisis and the pandemic situation here, because Brazil is totally locked down. Everyone is basically at home. The schools are closed. Most stores are closed still. It's been so since March, I think.
Yeah.
So it's really a boost for these kind of ways of working. So nothing bad that doesn't bring something good with it. So
that's a nice way to look at it. Thank you. And Nicola, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nico Aguedarov. I'm also very thankful to be joining this great team. And I was also reading every page, learning a lot of new things myself. How the whole journey started for me towards agility, if I can say, it started when I was a consultant. And I've been working for some telecoms, and I noticed a similarity in their delivery. The similarity was that they had the classical, let's say, ITL support stream, but they also have the software development and support, right? Because they were developing software, the software was released, and then there were some bugs which were, coming back to them as a third level support. So what I saw there was a big kind of us and them attitude, like we are doing ITL and they're doing Agile and Scrum, and everyone was saying our is better, so let's do the things in this way and that way. So kind of throwing the things over the fence, back and forth. And I started to think, is it really one is better and the other one is not so good, etc. So I said, okay, before I can say my opinion, I need to understand what Agile is and how software development teams work overall. So I started reading a lot about Agile, about Scrum, and about how in general, basically, software teams. Although I had done some programming in my life, but on a student level, so nothing professional. So I started reading and I started thinking, there are some nice things over there. And especially about speed, about quality, about customer satisfaction, customer involvement in what we do. So there were really some nice things, so we couldn't copy it one-to-one, basically just, let's take it over to the service delivery, and use Scrum, basically from tomorrow. But there were some very nice things. So this is how the journey started for me 2-3 years ago. And since then, everything that I write and I think about is this, how can we kind of solve this problem, us and them. And this is why, as you can see also in my signature, Agile ITSM, basically trying to really hardcore align those two, right? So really say, look, it's one thing. In the end of the day, you have joint customer base,
Fantastic. Thank you. And I can see there's people watching us live on YouTube. So just to remind you, if you're watching us live, you can put questions in the YouTube comments. We'll see them here. We can bring them up on screen and we can answer them. So if you've got any questions that you want to put to our panel, by all means, please do. I think today we can take questions in English, Bulgarian, Brazilian, and Swedish. Is that correct? Yep. So...
In Texan.
Oh, and Texan, of course, yes. S's and Z's. So I think one of the things that kind of seems to run through a lot of these Agile conversations as kind of a thread is this idea of a more resilient and more adaptable organization. And resilience seems to be a word that I'm hearing more and more as well. So I'll come to you first, Nicholas, to maybe talk about this, but I want to hear from Daniel and Nicola as well. But does Agile give us a more resilient organization?
I would say yes, because it's all about creating small teams that, focus on a goal, which is, customer based on, user stories and all these kind of things. And they themselves can organize themselves among them how to do the work. No one is telling them, controlling them, asking them for status reports all the time. There's just, full transparency. And, with these small teams, you have a flexibility which makes you more resilient because you can more easily adapt to the ever-changing world, or what we call it, VUCA and world and stuff. So in these days, I think it's all about being flexible, but to still be able to produce. So you cannot sit there like trying to be fast, run really fast, because then you're going to be sloppy. So you have to be fast in a controlled manner. This is why I always think it's also ridiculous that people say, oh, no, we're going to be agile. We don't need process. Hold on, that's not what we're saying here. It's not that you can do it the way you want it. Self-organizing doesn't mean any way. We still have, ways of working, and the process has to be really good, which is why I really dig what you're saying, Nicola, about ITSM and Agile together, because ITSM and Agile has been here for a long time. It's not going to leave. Still going to be here. We're still going to be able to do this. You just have to do it faster. So to go really fast, you have to go to have really good process, and to be able to have, for example, 2 lanes, the fast one and the low risk one. The bimodal stuff. So I really think that, focusing on value, not doing, this fixed planning and be surprised by being more, certain listening to the customer and being more attentive to be able to, adapt to the changing situation. That makes us more resilient because we're more active. We don't, do a 5 months planning, shut the door, and then code for 5 months, then surprised when it doesn't, hit the target because everything changed, So I immediately, fell in love with Agile when I saw it, because it makes sense. And it's not religious, you have all these frameworks and types, and it can be safe, or it can be, Scrum or whatever, or Kanban, but, the principle is still the same. Transparency, openness, and flexibility, and focus on productivity, to always produce something. So in 2 weeks you produce something. So I really like that. I think that makes us more resilient.
Yeah, and I'll bring you in at that point, Nicola, as well. Does that reflect your experience?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to quote Darwin, who said that it's not the biggest who survive, it's the one who adapts the most, right? So basically, I think agility gives us this, so you are resilient because you know how to adapt, you know how to respond to any force, basically, as Daniel pointed out, bad things happen, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's COVID, whether it's some economical crisis, some people even have worse, wars, etc. So all those things, they are there, so we cannot just close our eyes. I have two small kids, and we try to speak about everything with them because this is where we live. This is our planet. So yeah, you have to learn how to be adaptive. You have to then kind of structure it and then repeat it over again, and adapt the way you are adaptive. Basically that's also part of the never-ending story. So for me, agility is a mindset. Nick was also pointed out, and by the way, I'm I'm fascinated by the Agile manifest. I know that some people kind of see it as this, kind of almost 20-year-old artifact, and think, why they even did that? What is this? And when I thought about agility and software development, I said these guys were genius, because in the end, we just have one manifest, giving us some directions, 4 values, 12 principles, and the rest are frameworks that can deliver this. But you're not kind of bound to a single way of working. You're bound to a single way of thinking. So that's why I loved manifest. And that's why in my head, I'm thinking, by the way, lately about an Agile ITSM manifest. Let's say it like this, or a more kind of ITSM related, because again, it's not so much the framework. Whatever you do as a framework, at some point of time, it will not be effective as it was. So just my first sense on it.
Yeah, no, I like the idea. I'm sure somebody did some work before on an ITSM manifesto. It might be time to resurrect that concept. But
yeah, there were people working on that one. I think 10 years ago. Yeah, I think some time ago there was initiative. I did my research, my background research. But I think for me maybe the time was not right then. I think it's just sometimes it's also the timing.
Yeah. And bringing you in, Daniel, as well, because I think one of the big changes that we've seen with Agile is it's not just a software development thing anymore. It's right across the organization. So with the customers that you work with, do you see Agile helping them be more resilient?
Well, it's interesting because a client came over to me and went, "We want to be Agile." And I went, "Okay, let me rephrase your question. You want to introduce into your organization a concept that was created over 3 days by 17 programmers in a ski lodge." And there was just this blank look on his face. And he went, "No, I want to introduce Agile. We want to go to 2-week sessions of doing stuff." And I went, "Okay, so that's one of the 42 flavors under the umbrella that is now called Agile, big A." And it goes back to what Nicola was saying and Nicholas was saying, and what I said earlier is, they want the tool, they don't have the mindset. They're doomed to failure. In which case, then you're not going to be resilient. If you want to be resilient, it has to be in your body. It has to be in your heart. It has to be in your head, or you're going to get this, COVID. Yes, the drugs will help and whatever, but you also need to follow the rules. You have to wear a face mask. You have to wear, not do silly things. The same thing that you used to do back when flu was really big. Wash your hand and stuff. It's all part of the mindset of being resilient and having the strength and forwardness to be able to overcome the challenges that may be coming down the road. Yes, you need technology. Yes, some of these methodologies or thinking because I won't use the word framework because they're not, are useful, but they're only useful in the context of your organization. And if you can't explain that context to your organization, they won't have a clue either.
Mhm.
They won't know what's in it for them, and they won't do it. They'll just wait for the next person to come. So for me, business continuity is, how do you get that right mindset and benefit from Agile, benefit from ITSM, benefit from DevOps, benefit from whatever you'd like to call it,
Mhm.
okay, to keep your business in business.
And I think it's something that's come up in quite a few of the ITSM crowds we've done this week, is this removal of barriers all of a sudden, and that's organizational barriers and mental barriers, because organizations are suddenly appreciating that actually, yes, we can do this stuff really quickly. When we are forced to change how we work, things that we said weren't possible, like home working, like flexible working, suddenly have become possible. So it's a question for all of you, so I'll kind of let people jump in. But for people who are watching this, and I see people watching us live at the moment now, so please do ask your questions in the YouTube comments as well. But for the people who are watching this and thinking, I'd like my organization to be a bit more agile, we've been through the chaos, now we want to kind of have a slightly more managed chaos. What tips would you give organizations that were starting to think about becoming a bit more agile? Where would they start?
I like starting, and I'm not saying this because I'm IT. I like starting at the service desk.
Okay.
And the reason why I like starting at the service desk is that it's an amazing source of information. The service desk logs everything that's going right in your organization and everything that's going wrong in your organization. Who is helpful, who isn't helpful, what applications are good, what applications are bad, where are customers having issues or your staff having issues, where is their slowness, whatever. And you can take that information and you can go back to your people and go, okay, if these are our common issues, I'm not talking about incidents, if these are our common issues, how do we improve ourselves? Because with that, we can start driving towards sustainability and resilience. But I'm interested in your MVA, Nicholas, because you've put in 3 big words for leaders: minimum, viable, and agility.
Yeah, it actually works, because that's what I do. I mean, as a consultant, someone calls me, please help me with, digital transformation, implement IT processes, improve or whatever. I always set up a basic structure. It contains of some sort of user stories or similar. It has a board or a backlog, so I can have a visual of everything. It has OKRs. We don't do reporting all the time, and we base focus on collaboration. So minimum viable agile is those things. You need to break down the work into small pieces. You have to have the team working with that as they see fit, but they have to have the same goal as we have up there. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I saw these high flying vision, mission, and objectives, and then the guys at the floor doing something completely different, I'd be living on an island somewhere, sipping on caipirinhas, because that's the one good thing with OKRs. It actually fits together everything nicely, from the objectives up here down to breaking it down all the way until the sprint goals for 2 weeks for a small team. So the structure, the agile structure, just gives that. So my advice to an organization that wants to get a bit of control now is to get a board. And I mean, if people are still working from home, get one of these virtual boards. There's plenty of tools out there on the Atlassian suites or whatever. It's the visual, the value having visual to everyone focusing on the same goal, to break things down into what's most important first and do it in 2 weeks increment. Having these daily meetings in the morning saying, okay, I'm good, yesterday I did this, tomorrow I will do that, and can you help me with this? That kind of spirit just gets people more agile. Then you can think of all the other stuff, having all the Scrum Masters or the product owners, and you cannot do everything at once. That's why minimum viable agile will take you the first piece to start, reaping the benefits, focusing on result instead of activities, to get those objectives boiling down to the actual desks of the programmers and stuff. So I see it works. It just, takes the complexity out of everything, and not being religious and saying, we're going to do SAFe now, so we're going to send everyone on a 2-week course. No. That's not being agile. That's just trying to be religious all again, taking a framework. I agree with you, Dan, by the way. And pouring it down the organization and think that everything is going to be solved. It's still the same challenges. So
that's good advice there. And I think it's certainly something that we've seen with the shift to home working for knowledge workers is you have to focus on outcomes rather than what people are doing, because you can't sit and stare at them all day. Nicola, your advice for organizations to get started on the Agile trip?
I will try to build up on what Daniel and Nico said. I think each organization today should focus on the results, right? Focus on the outcomes, on the results. Then map it, whether you call it a value stream, whether you call it, a work stream, doesn't matter, But basically get a good understanding, how do we get to the result? How do we get to the outcome? And then basically try to define ranges, kind of, I would say borders, where it's okay to be crossed, for example, people working time, people working destination, all this. So kind of try to define, what is allowed and what is not allowed. So try to really understand, is it really a single line, or we have kind of, more a blurry line here and there, and let the people figure it out, or basically kind of take the ownership, because I think this is one of the greatest things in this Agile manifesto was, kind of saying, hey, people are important, people are really key, because they are the ones delivering all of this, So, and then also another aspects are customers, because in my work, I've seen a lot of times, there are different types of waste, coming from lean. We have, like even over productiveness as a waste, so delivering more than it's needed. So I will also give this advice, try to work with your customer and understand, is this really what they need? And can they be okay with you kind of, changing the parameters a little bit, but keeping, kind of almost the same quality, but maybe with a better timeline or with an easier access for them, kind of, I would suggest to rethink the whole relationship a little bit, and what can be changed, to a positive, of course.
Fantastic. Thank you. Go on, Daniel.
I think it's important for organizations, and Nicholas touched upon this, was you need to think about, we don't want to go back to what we were before COVID, that staff. That didn't work for you. There's a new world out there, and customers expect new things. So you need to be planning for next. And if you look at, the focus of Agile, the focus of DevOps, the focus of ITSM are all to service your customer as well as possible. So what are you doing to do that? And how can your staff or your service partners help you? Cyan.
I like the statement from, I don't remember the book, some of the manager books, with 7 pieces of advice for a good organization. I can't remember the name of the author, maybe it will pop up, but one of them was begin with the end in mind. If you start with the customer, start thinking about the customer, and then you boil it down, you will always do the right thing. You're not trying to redo things on IT and then we sell it. No. That's it. We need to, focus on them and do what they need, and you just, be good at that, and making sure that we are involved together. And that's why I love the, the product idea.
Yeah.
the IT. It's not a system anymore. It's a product, and we need to treat it like a product.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. Every single one of these episodes has flown, but just a little flavour there of the fact that we have 3 extremely experienced Agile thinkers on this panel. So all of our panel have kindly agreed for you to hunt them down on LinkedIn and ask any follow-up questions you might have. So just a reminder there, Daniel Breston, got Nicholas Fredrickson and Nico Aguedarov, and by all means follow up with them, chat to them. They are truly all of them inspirational minds, and I've learned from all of them. And just a final note is that our next episode of the ITSM Crowd is next Tuesday at 4 p.m. BST. Shift away from the Jigsaw theme. We have 2 of the ITIL product team from Axelos joining us. So we've got Akshay Anand and Roman Juravlev coming on. And it's basically an ITIL 4 question and answer, free for all. If you're watching us live, you can ask questions yourself if you've got anything that you want to ask about ITIL 4. So would really recommend that you join us for that one. It's going to be a really good episode. I think we're double time on that one as well. I think we're an hour, so we've got plenty of time to go through all the questions. So all that remains for me is to say a huge thank you to our panel for joining us. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, Nicola. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody who's been watching. And
thanks, everyone.
Really appreciate you being with us, and we will see you on the next episode of the ITSM Crowd. Thanks, everyone.